the shock that shook your faith. Chosen one, let me speak to you slowly here. Because what you went through was not small. Divorce does something to the soul that few people truly understand. It is not just the ending of a relationship. It feels like the collapse of a future you already lived in your mind. One day, you were building a life with someone. The next day, you were standing in the silence, wondering how everything you prayed for could fall apart so completely. I know the shock didn't just hit your emotions, it hit your faith. You prayed, you tried, you believed God would fix it. And when it still ended, something inside you whispered questions you were afraid to say out loud. Did I hear God wrong? Did I fail him? Did he turn his back on me? Those questions didn't make you weak. They made you human. And they certainly did not disqualify you from being chosen. Chosen ones often experience deeper pain because they love deeply, commit fully, and believe sincerely. You didn't enter that marriage halfway. You gave your heart, your loyalty, your prayers, and your future. So when it ended, it felt like something was ripped out of you. Not just a person, but a version of yourself. The version that believed love would last forever the way you imagined it. There were nights when you lay awake replaying conversations, decisions, and moments. You asked yourself what you could have done differently. You blamed yourself for things that were never yours to carry. You wondered why God allowed betrayal, distance, coldness, or silence to grow where love once lived. And the hardest part was smiling in front of people who had no idea how broken you felt inside. What hurt the most wasn't even the arguments or the separation. It was the feeling of spiritual confusion. You expected God to intervene the way you imagined. You expected a miracle that would restore what was falling apart. And when that miracle didn't come, it felt like God went quiet. That silence shook you. Because chosen ones are used to hearing God, feeling him, being guided. And suddenly, it felt like you were walking in fog. But listen to me closely now. God's silence does not mean his absence. Sometimes, when God is doing his deepest work, he speaks the least. Not because he doesn't care, but because the lesson cannot be taught with words. It can only be learned through experience. Your divorce made you question your worth, your discernment, and even your calling. You may have thought, if I'm really chosen, why would God allow this kind of pain? But chosen one, being chosen does not mean being spared. It means being prepared. And preparation often looks like loss before clarity. You were not crazy for believing the marriage could work. You were not foolish for loving deeply. And you were not wrong for praying for restoration. Those prayers were heard. But sometimes, God answers by removing what prayer alone cannot heal. The shock you felt was the breaking of an illusion, not the breaking of your destiny. What shattered was a structure that could not support where God was taking you next. And the reason it hurt so badly is because part of you was still trying to survive in a place God was already calling you out of. You didn't just lose a partner, you lost routine, identity, safety, and certainty. You lost the version of life you thought you were supposed to have, and grief came in waves. Some days you felt strong. Other days, one song, one memory, one quiet moment could bring tears out of nowhere. That didn't mean you were going backward. It meant you were processing. Chosen one, let me tell you something that will bring peace to your spirit. God is not disappointed in you. He is not shaking his head at your pain. He is not punishing you. What you experienced was not rejection. It was redirection. But redirection always feels like loss before it feels like purpose. The enemy wants you to believe that divorce disqualified you. Society wants you to believe you failed. Even religion sometimes whispers shame instead of grace. But God does not see you the way people see you. He sees the heart. He sees the endurance. He sees the lessons you learned. And he sees the strength that was forged in the fire you didn't ask for. Your faith shaking did not mean it was gone. It meant it was being refined. A faith that has never been tested is fragile, but a faith that survives heartbreak becomes unshakable. You may not have realized it yet, But something inside you grew stronger during those darkest moments. You became more discerning, more self-aware, more connected to truth instead of illusion. You are still chosen, even after the papers were signed, even after the house became quiet, even after the dreams changed shape. God did not change his mind about you. He simply changed your direction. And in the next part, I'm going to help you understand something powerful. God did not leave you in that season. He removed something that could not go with you into what he is preparing next. Let me add something important here. Chosen one, because this is where many of you quietly get stuck. After the shock settled, after the initial tears slowed down, you were left with a strange emptiness. Not loud pain anymore, but a hollow feeling. A sense that something was missing, yet you couldn't even explain what it was. That emptiness wasn't weakness. It was space. Space God was creating inside you. You see, before the divorce, your life was filled with noise, expectations, compromises, emotional labor, trying to hold things together, trying to be strong for someone else while slowly shrinking yourself. And when it all ended, the silence felt unbearable. But that silence was not meant to punish you. It was meant to introduce you back to yourself. Many chosen ones confuse familiarity with destiny. Just because something feels known does not mean it is aligned. That marriage may have been familiar. It may have been comfortable at one time. But comfort can quietly become a cage. And God will never allow his chosen to remain trapped, even if the cage is decorated with good memories. You also felt judged by family, by friends, by people who didn't know what was happening behind closed doors. Some of them spoke words that cut deep. Others stayed silent when you needed support the most. That isolation made the pain heavier. But hear me clearly. God often isolates his chosen not because they are rejected, but because he is separating them from voices that cannot guide them through the next season. There were moments you questioned your discernment. You asked yourself how you didn't see the signs earlier. You replayed red flags and ignored warnings, and that self-criticism became another burden. But chosen one, discernment grows through experience. Wisdom is not born in comfort, it is born in consequence. You didn't fail discernment. Discernment was being trained, and here is a truth that may be hard to hear, but it will heal you. Sometimes God allows us to choose what is not aligned so we can finally understand what alignment feels like. If everything had worked perfectly, you might have never developed the spiritual maturity you carry now. You would have remained dependent on the relationship instead of grounded in God. The pain slowed you down. It forced you to sit with yourself. It forced you to pray differently. Not desperate prayers anymore, but honest ones. The kind where you stopped pretending and started surrendering. That shift alone tells me God is still deeply involved in your life. So if you are wondering why this had to hurt so much, the answer is simple. Because you are built for depth. Shallow lessons would never transform you. And what broke you emotionally is what strengthened you spiritually. God did not leave. He removed. Chosen one, this is where your understanding must shift. Because if you misinterpret this part, you will carry unnecessary pain for years. God did not leave you in that season. He removed something. And there is a difference so deep that once you see it, peace begins to settle into places that have been restless for far too long. When the marriage ended, it felt like abandonment. It felt like God stepped back and let everything collapse. But God never abandons his chosen. What he does, when necessary, is intervene quietly. He removes what cannot be healed, corrected, or carried forward. Not because he is cruel, but because he is precise. You were praying for peace. You were praying for clarity. You were praying for love to return, and God heard every single prayer. But sometimes the answer to those prayers is not restoration. Sometimes the answer is release. because you cannot have peace while staying connected to something that drains your spirit. You cannot gain clarity while remaining tied to confusion. And you cannot grow in love while constantly being wounded in the same place. There are relationships that God never intended to last forever, not because they were meaningless, but because they were instructional. Some people come into your life to awaken you, not to stay with you. And chosen ones often struggle with this truth because they are loyal by nature. You stay longer than you should. You try harder than required. You forgive more than is healthy, and you call endurance faith, even when God is calling you out. God saw what you could not fully see. He saw the emotional erosion. He saw the spiritual misalignment. He saw how much of yourself you were losing just to keep the relationship alive. He saw prayers turning into anxiety, love turning into survival, and joy turning into obligation. You may have been asking God to fix the other person, but God was watching what staying was doing to you. Let me say this clearly. Not everything that begins with prayer is sustained by God. You can pray your way into something that still isn't aligned with your destiny. God honors free will, even when it leads to lessons instead of lifetimes. And when a relationship starts interfering with your calling, your peace, or your spiritual clarity, God will step in. Not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. You may have felt God's hand when doors closed that you were still trying to keep open. Conversations ended that you wanted to continue, feelings changed that you prayed would stay the same, and that confusion hurt because it felt like betrayal. But chosen one, God does not betray. He protects, and protection does not always feel gentle. God removed the relationship because it could not go where He was taking you. Some people are assigned to your past, not your future, and if they cannot grow with you, they cannot walk with you. God will never elevate you while you are emotionally anchored to something that limits you. Elevation requires lightness, and that marriage had become too heavy for your spirit. You also need to understand this. God does not compete for space in your life. If something or someone begins to take His place in your heart, your decisions, or your identity, He will remove it, not to punish you, but to realign you. Because chosen ones are not meant to be dependent on human relationships for identity, validation, or purpose. You didn't lose God in your divorce. You lost an illusion. The illusion that love alone could sustain something God did not ordain for the long term. The illusion that effort could replace alignment. The illusion that sacrifice without growth was holy. God dismantled that illusion because it was blocking your vision. And yes, it hurt. Because removal always hurts more than walking away. You didn't choose the ending, it was forced. And forced endings bruise the ego and break the heart. But forced endings also save lives. They prevent deeper damage. They stop cycles that would have destroyed you slowly. God saw years ahead. He saw the bitterness that would have grown, the resentment that would have hardened your heart, the spiritual exhaustion that would have made you question everything. And because He loves you, He shortened the suffering. What you experienced was mercy disguised as loss. Chosen one, let this truth settle in your spirit. God did not leave you alone in the wreckage. He was the one guiding you out, even when you were too hurt to recognize His hand. And the moment you stop seeing the divorce as abandonment and start seeing it as divine removal, is the moment healing accelerates. Because God only removes what cannot be redeemed in its current form, and He only does that when something better, cleaner, and more aligned is ahead. And here is something else you must understand, chosen one, because this truth releases many of you from quiet self-blame. God often removes people in stages. First emotionally, then mentally, and finally physically. That is why, even before the divorce became official, you felt distant. Conversations felt forced. Affection faded. Prayer felt heavy instead of peaceful. That wasn't you failing. That was God slowly loosening a bond that could no longer hold spiritual weight. Many of you stayed longer than God wanted because you were hoping for the past to return. You were loyal to memories instead of truth. And God, in His patience, allowed time for you to see what you were truly dealing with. He allowed the mask to slip. He allowed patterns to repeat. He allowed exhaustion to surface, not to hurt you, but to confirm what your spirit already knew, but your heart wasn't ready to accept. God will never rush his chosen into separation without confirmation. He confirms through peace leaving, through joy fading, through prayers feeling unanswered, through your body carrying stress your soul can no longer hide. When your spirit begins to resist what your mind is still justifying, that is divine warning. And many of you ignored that warning out of love, fear, or obligation. You were trying to be Christ-like by enduring, but endurance is only holy when it produces fruit. If endurance only produces pain, anxiety, and self-abandonment, it is no longer obedience. It becomes disconnection from self. And God will never ask you to disappear in order to please him. Another reason God removed the relationship is because chosen ones attract people who are drawn to their light, but not committed to their growth. They benefit from your compassion, your patience, your prayers, your stability, but they do not pour back at the same level. Over time, this imbalance drains you, and what drains you weakens your calling. God protects his investment, and you are his investment. You may have noticed that after the divorce, even though you were grieving, a strange sense of relief surfaced at unexpected moments. Guilt followed that relief quickly. You told yourself you shouldn't feel lighter. But that lightness was not disrespect. It was alignment returning. It was your spirit no longer fighting itself. God removes relationships when they require you to constantly explain your worth, justify your needs, or minimize your calling. You were never meant to beg for basic respect or emotional safety. And the fact that you survived that season without losing your faith completely is proof that God was holding you the entire time. Let me say this with authority. God did not remove your spouse to leave you empty. He removed them to make room. Room for clarity, room for healing, room for strength, room for deeper intimacy with him, and eventually, room for connections that meet you where you are going, not where you have been. What was removed was not meant to walk into your next chapter, and had it stayed, it would have delayed your assignment. God is more concerned with your destiny than your comfort, and when comfort becomes compromise, he intervenes. So stop asking why God allowed the ending. Start asking what he protected you from, because one day, when you look back with healed eyes, you will realize that what felt like loss was actually rescue. Why chosen ones must experience relational death? Chosen one, this part may feel heavy, but it will heal you if you let it. Because there is a truth most people never understand. Not everyone is called to experience relational death, but chosen ones almost always do. And it is not because God enjoys your pain. It is because your assignment requires a level of spiritual clarity that cannot coexist with certain attachments. Relational death is not just about divorce. It is about the death of who you were becoming in a relationship that was slowly pulling you away from who God designed you to be. It is the ending of an identity that no longer fits your calling. And for chosen ones, identity is everything. If the identity is distorted, the mission becomes delayed. Chosen ones are not meant to blend in. You are built to carry weight, spiritual weight, emotional depth, responsibility that others would collapse under. And because of that, God cannot afford for your soul to be tangled in relationships that dilute your focus, drain your energy, or confuse your discernment. What others can tolerate for a lifetime, chosen ones can only survive temporarily. Relational death feels extreme because it is extreme. It feels final, painful, like something was taken from you without your consent. But spiritual rebirth almost always requires a form of death. Nothing new can fully emerge while the old is still clinging to life. And God is not interested in upgrading what was flawed at its foundation. He is interested in transformation. Many of you were becoming smaller to keep the relationship alive. You adjusted your voice. You softened your truth. You delayed your growth You ignored the nudges from God because you didn't want to disrupt the peace. But chosen one, peace that requires self-betrayal is not peace. It is avoidance. And avoidance always has an expiration date. God allows relational death because chosen ones cannot fulfill divine purpose while emotionally dependent on someone who does not share spiritual alignment. You can love someone deeply and still be misaligned. Love does not equal assignment. Chemistry does not equal covenant. And history does not equal destiny. These distinctions become painfully clear only after the separation. There is also something else. Chosen ones often carry healing energy. You attract wounded people, broken people, unfinished people. They see your light before they understand its cost. And they attach to you hoping your strength will compensate for their unwillingness to grow. Over time, you become the container for pain that was never yours to carry. Relational death happens when God decides you have carried enough. When the weight begins to threaten your calling. When the emotional labor starts to dull your spiritual sensitivity. When love turns into obligation, and obligation turns into resentment. God steps in before bitterness hardens your heart beyond recognition. You were not meant to learn this lesson gently. Gentle lessons rarely change chosen ones. You are too resilient. You would have adapted. You would have endured. You would have normalized what was slowly breaking you. So God allowed something undeniable, something that forced separation, something that left no room for negotiation. And yes, it hurt deeply because relational death exposes everything you tried to ignore. It exposes attachment wounds, fear of abandonment, the need for validation, the belief that love must be earned through sacrifice. God had to bring those wounds to the surface so they could finally be healed instead of hidden. Relational death also teaches chosen ones discernment at a level books and sermons never can. You learn to listen to energy, not words. Patterns, not promises. Consistency, not potential. You learn that alignment feels peaceful, not chaotic. Secure, not anxious. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. This is why, after the divorce, many of you felt both grief and clarity at the same time. Pain and relief coexisted. That was not confusion. That was truth settling in. Your spirit recognized freedom even while your heart was mourning familiarity. God also uses relational death to detach you from identity roles that are not eternal. Spouse is a role. Partner is a role. But chosen one is an identity. And when a role begins to override the identity, it must be dismantled. God will never allow a role to replace who you are in Him. You may have asked God why it had to end so harshly, why there couldn't be a softer transition, but chosen one, slow endings leave room for return. And God knew you would go back if the door stayed open. Not because it was right, but because it was familiar. So, He closed it completely. Relational death also humbles the ego. It strips the illusion of control. You realize you cannot love someone into becoming who they refuse to be. You cannot praise someone into alignment if they are not willing. And you cannot save a relationship at the cost of your own soul. This death was necessary because what is ahead of you requires wholeness, not attachment, not desperation, not fear-driven connection. Wholeness. God is preparing you for a life where you are led, not latched, grounded, not grasping, secure, not settling. You are not being punished. You are being purified. Purified of expectations that were never God's. Purified of roles that limited your growth. Purified of emotional dependencies that blurred your discernment. And hear me clearly now. Relational death does not mean you will be alone forever. It means you will never again abandon yourself to be loved. It means future connections will meet you in truth, not trauma. In alignment, not illusion. Chosen one. What died had to die. Because what God is birthing in you cannot coexist with who you were forced to become just to survive that relationship. This was not the end of your story. It was the end of a version of you that could not go any further. There is another layer to relational death that many chosen ones don't recognize until much later. It teaches you how to stand alone without becoming hardened. Before this season, many of you confused independence with isolation and love with attachment. The separation forced you to learn how to be whole in God before being whole with another person. You learned how to sit with yourself, how to face silence without filling it with distractions, how to hear God without someone else's voice influencing your decisions. That kind of inner stillness is rare, and it is required for those called to lead, guide, or spiritually influence others. God cannot speak clearly through a vessel that is emotionally overcrowded. Relational death also resets your nervous system. For the first time in a long time, your body began to relax. The constant tension, the walking on eggshells, the emotional uncertainty slowly faded. You may not have noticed it immediately, but peace started returning in subtle ways. Better sleep, clearer thinking, deeper prayer. That was not coincidence. That was alignment. God also allowed this ending to restore your authority. In relationships where you were overgiving, your power was leaking. You were negotiating boundaries instead of enforcing them. After the separation, something shifted. You became more discerning, more selective, less willing to compromise your values for temporary comfort. This experience taught you self-respect at a soul level. Not the loud kind, the quiet, unshakable kind, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind that simply walks away when something is not aligned. And that is why relational death, as painful as it is, becomes one of the greatest initiations of a chosen one's life. It does not destroy you. It consecrates you. It marks the moment you stop surviving relationships and start leading your life with intention. What died was not love. What died was illusion. And what emerged was truth. The stripping season and identity rebirth. Chosen one, after relational death comes what many people fear the most, but what God uses the most powerfully. The stripping season. This is the phase no one applauds, no one celebrates it. And yet, it is where your real identity is reborn. Not the identity shaped by survival, marriage, roles, or expectations, but the one anchored in truth. The stripping season feels quiet, slow, and uncomfortable. It is when distractions fall away and excuses no longer work. God begins removing layers, not to shame you, but to free you. Layers of people-pleasing, layers of performance, layers of needing approval to feel worthy. You may have thought the divorce was the hardest part, but this season challenges you in a deeper way. It asks you to sit with yourself honestly. In this season, God strips what you leaned on instead of Him. Titles fall away. Roles dissolve. You are no longer someone's spouse. You are no longer defined by what you did for others, and that loss of definition can feel terrifying. Because when labels disappear, you are left face to face with the question you avoided for years. Who am I without this? That question is not meant to break you, it is meant to introduce you to yourself. During the stripping season, you may feel invisible, unnoticed, like life slowed down while everyone else moved forward. That is not delay. That is divine recalibration. God is adjusting your inner foundation so it can support what He intends to build next. Anything built on unstable identity collapses under pressure. God is too intentional to allow that. You may notice old coping mechanisms no longer work. Distractions feel empty. Busyness feels exhausting. Even certain friendships feel shallow. That is because God is refining your appetite. What once satisfied you no longer does. And that discomfort is a sign of growth, not loss. This is also the season where God confronts you gently but firmly. He reveals patterns you normalized, ways you overgave, ways you ignored red flags, ways you confused sacrifice with love, not to condemn you, but to heal you. You cannot correct what you refuse to see, and God loves you too much to let you repeat cycles disguised as loyalty. Identity rebirth happens quietly. There is no announcement, No applause, just small internal shifts. You begin saying no without guilt. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen. You feel less urgency to be understood. You start trusting your intuition again. That is God restoring discernment that was dulled by emotional exhaustion. In this season, solitude becomes sacred. Loneliness may knock, but it no longer controls you. You learn the difference between being alone and being empty. You realize that your worth does not decrease in quiet seasons. In fact, it deepens, because your value was never tied to how much you gave others. It was always rooted in who you are in God. You may also grieve versions of yourself. The one who believed love would save everything. The one who tolerated too much. The one who tried harder instead of resting. Let that grief come. Grief is not weakness, it is release. You are not dishonoring your past self by outgrowing them. You are honoring the lessons they paid for. God also begins rebuilding your confidence differently, not through validation, but through clarity. You start recognizing what you will no longer accept. You stop chasing closure from people who cannot give it. You make peace with unanswered questions. That peace is evidence of maturity. During the stripping season, your relationship with God changes. You stop praying from desperation and start praying from surrender. You stop asking why and start asking what. What are you teaching me? What are you removing? What are you preparing me for? Those prayers shift your posture, and God responds to posture more than words. You also begin to feel a quiet authority return. Not dominance, not arrogance. Authority, the kind that comes from knowing yourself. The kind that doesn't argue. It simply chooses differently. This authority is necessary for what comes next, because chosen ones are not meant to be led by emotion alone. They are meant to be led by truth. Identity. Rebirth also means forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself for staying too long, for ignoring intuition, for hoping things would change. Forgiveness is not excusing mistakes. It is releasing yourself from punishment. God is not holding your past over your head, neither should you. This season teaches you how to self-soothe without self-destructing, how to be present without escaping, how to trust God without demanding timelines. These skills are not optional for chosen ones, they are foundational. And here is something powerful. When God strips you, He never leaves you empty. He replaces. He replaces confusion with clarity, neediness with wholeness, fear with discernment. You may not feel fully restored yet, but you are becoming grounded, rooted, stable. The stripping season ends quietly too. One day you realize you are no longer chasing what once consumed you. You no longer react the same way. You no longer fear being alone. And that is when identity rebirth has taken place. Chosen one, you are not losing yourself. You are finally meeting yourself. The version God intended before pain, compromise, and survival shaped you. And this version will walk into the next chapter differently. Not desperate, not broken, but awake, whole, and deeply aligned. The divorce saved you from a destiny delay. Chosen one, this is where many of you finally exhale. Because once you see this truth clearly, regret begins to loosen its grip. Your divorce did not ruin your future. It rescued it. What felt like a collapse was actually a correction, a divine interruption that prevented a destiny delay you could not afford. There are seasons when God allows things to end, not because they are evil, but because they are inefficient for where He is taking you. That marriage was costing you time, clarity, and emotional energy that your calling required. And time is the one thing destiny does not wait for. God moves on appointed schedules. When something consistently interferes with divine timing, He removes it. You were slowing down to accommodate someone who was not moving at your pace. You were explaining your vision to someone who could not see it. You were shrinking your growth so the relationship could survive. And that shrinking did not go unnoticed by God. He saw how often you postponed your own becoming just to keep peace. Peace at the cost of purpose is too expensive. Destiny delay happens quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as loyalty, responsibility, and commitment. You tell yourself you are doing the right thing, that sacrifice is noble, that patience will eventually pay off. But chosen one, there is a difference between patience and postponement. God is patient, destiny is precise. Your divorce interrupted a pattern that would have slowly redirected your life away from your assignment. The longer you stayed, the more compromised your discernment became. You were becoming reactive instead of prophetic, exhausted instead of inspired, distracted instead of focused. And those shifts are dangerous for someone called to lead spiritually. God also saw the future versions of you that would never emerge if the marriage continued. The voice that would remain quiet, the confidence that would stay muted, the obedience that would keep negotiating instead of surrendering. God does not negotiate with destiny. He protects it. You may have believed that staying was the mature thing to do, that endurance was proof of faith. But God does not measure faith by how long you suffer. He measures it by how closely you follow Him. And when He begins to pull you in a new direction, resistance becomes disobedience. The divorce saved you from becoming spiritually stagnant. Stagnation is more dangerous than failure. Failure teaches. Stagnation numbs. It keeps you busy but unfulfilled, safe but unaligned. God would rather disrupt your comfort than allow your calling to slowly suffocate. After the separation, even though pain was present, movement returned. You began thinking differently, praying differently, seeing yourself differently. That was destiny reactivating. What had been paused was now back in motion. The fog lifted. The heaviness lessened. Direction became clearer. Destiny delay also affects future generations. The choices you make now shape the lives connected to you later. God saw what staying would cost not just you, but those you are meant to impact. And because your life is not just about you, He intervened. You were being trained to carry influence, not just maintain a household, to walk in obedience, not just obligation, to live in alignment, not just agreement. And that training required freedom. Emotional freedom, mental freedom, spiritual freedom. This is why the divorce happened when it did. Not earlier, not later, exactly when it needed to. Because had it happened sooner, you wouldn't have learned what you needed. And had it happened later, the cost would have been too high. Let go of the thought that you lost time. You gained wisdom, you gained discernment, you gained clarity that would have taken decades to develop otherwise. God compresses lessons for chosen ones because their time matters. And hear this deeply. Nothing you lost in that marriage will be missing in your future. Nothing. God does not subtract without intention to multiply. What feels like absence now is simply space being prepared. The divorce did not delay your destiny. It removed what was delaying it. And from this point forward, your life begins to move with a different kind of momentum. One led by purpose, not pressure. Chosen one, you are not behind. You are right on time. Because God does not miss His appointments, and neither do those who are willing to let go when He says it is time. What comes next for the chosen one? Chosen one, now that the storm has passed and the dust has settled, the question quietly rises within you. What comes next? Not just in relationships, but in life, in purpose, in identity. And I want to speak to you with clarity here, not fantasy. Because what comes next is not chaos. It is alignment. The next season is not about replacement. It is about restoration. God does not rush chosen ones into new connections to numb old wounds. He heals first. He grounds first. He strengthens first. And if you feel a delay, it is not denial. It is development. God is far more concerned with your wholeness than your timeline. What comes next is discernment at a level you did not have before. You will no longer be impressed by words. You will watch patterns. You will feel energy. You will recognize peace instantly because you have lived without it. Your standards will rise, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. You will no longer negotiate your values to avoid loneliness. The next season brings clarity in your purpose. Many chosen ones discover their calling more clearly after relational loss. Distraction is gone. Emotional noise has quieted. You can hear God again without filtering his voice through someone else's expectations. You begin to move with intention instead of reaction. You will also notice that your circle changes. Fewer people, deeper connections, surface-level relationships lose appeal. You crave substance now. Truth, growth, alignment. God removes people who cannot meet you in maturity, not because they are bad, but because they are incompatible with who you are becoming. What comes next is emotional stability. Not perfection, but regulation. You respond instead of react. You pause instead of panic. You trust yourself again. That trust is sacred. Guard it, because it took pain to earn it. In future relationships, you will move slower, but wiser. You will not rush intimacy. You will not confuse chemistry with compatibility. You will not ignore red flags to keep potential alive. You will let people show you who they are, and you will believe them. That is growth. You may worry that your heart will never love the same way again. And you are right. It won't. It will love healthier, stronger, with boundaries, with discernment, with self-respect. Love that honors God does not cost you your peace. What also comes next is confidence in solitude. You will enjoy your own company without feeling incomplete. You will build a life you are proud of, regardless of who is beside you. That independence is not rebellion, it is readiness. God may also call you into deeper service. Teaching, guiding, leading, comforting others through what you survived. Pain refined becomes purpose. Your story becomes medicine. And because you lived it, your words carry authority. Do not rush this season. Do not compare your path to others. Chosen ones move differently. Slower in some areas, faster in others, always intentional. What comes next is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of peace. A peace that remains even when things are uncertain. Because now, you trust God's direction more than your own desires. Chosen one, the next chapter will feel unfamiliar at first, but unfamiliar does not mean wrong. It means new, and new is where growth lives. You are not starting over, you are starting aligned. There is also something else coming that many chosen ones underestimate. Peace will become your compass. You will no longer make decisions based on urgency, fear, or emotional hunger. If something costs you your peace, you will recognize it immediately. And instead of wrestling with it, you will release it. That is not avoidance. That is wisdom. You will begin to sense divine timing more clearly. Opportunities will feel calmer, not chaotic. Doors will open without you forcing them. You won't feel the need to chase people, outcomes, or validation. What is meant for you will meet you with mutual effort. That ease is not laziness, it is alignment. God will also strengthen your boundaries in a way that feels natural instead of defensive. You won't need to explain yourself excessively. You won't feel guilty for choosing rest. You won't apologize for needing space. Boundaries will no longer feel like walls. They will feel like wisdom, guarding what God rebuilt. Another thing that comes next is emotional honesty with yourself. You will no longer pretend you are fine when you are not, but you also won't drown in emotion the way you once did. You will feel deeply without losing yourself. That balance is rare, and it is cultivated only through experience. You may notice that people begin to treat you differently. Some will respect you more. Others may pull away. That shift is not accidental. When you stop overgiving, those who benefited from your lack of boundaries often feel uncomfortable. Let them go. You are not meant to be accessible to everyone. God may also bring periods of stillness again. Do not panic when that happens. Stillness now serves a different purpose. It is no longer stripping, it is strengthening. You are learning how to move without noise, how to trust without signs, how to stand without reassurance. And when love does return to your life, whether through friendship, community, or partnership, it will feel different. It will feel safe, mutual, grounded. You won't feel like you are auditioning for permanence. You will feel chosen without performing. Most importantly, what comes next is self-leadership. You will no longer wait for someone else to validate your direction. You will listen, discern, and move with confidence. God leads chosen ones who can stand upright, not those who constantly look around for approval. So walk forward without fear. You are not stepping into the unknown blindly. You are stepping into it equipped. What comes next is not punishment. It is promise. Conclusion. You were never broken. You were being built. Chosen one, take a deep breath and let this settle in your spirit. You were never broken. Not by the divorce, not by the loss, not by the silence that followed. You were being built, carefully, intentionally, by a God who sees far beyond the moment that hurt you. What ended was not your future. It was the version of life that could not hold the weight of who you are becoming. God did not remove you from love. He removed you from limitation. And everything you walked through sharpened your discernment, strengthened your faith, and aligned your path. You are not behind. You are not damaged. You are not disqualified. You are refined. You are awake. You are standing on the other side with clarity you never had before. And that clarity will protect you, guide you, and position you for what is truly meant for you. Do not romanticize the pain, but honor the growth. Do not rush the process, but trust the timing. God has not forgotten you. He has been preparing you quietly, deeply, and faithfully. Now walk forward with peace. Walk forward with wisdom. Walk forward knowing that what God removes, He replaces with something that fits your calling. Before you go, chosen one, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tap the bell icon so you don't miss what God is revealing next. Share this message with other chosen ones who need healing. And comment 777 to declare that you fully trust God's divine plan for your life. Stay aligned, stay grounded, and remember, what God builds through you will last.